All right, welcome to the Darwin Innovation Hub live webinar all about planning your social media. Now, it's a bit tricky tonight because I'm actually doing this live both through Zoom and also through LinkedIn and YouTube. So please excuse me while I get everything set up. We're almost there and ready to go. So let's get this all started and make it work. Let's share that screen and we'll get underway. It's got to do it twice because I'm doing it on two different places here. So it might be a sec. All right, here we go. So first things I've got to do is get up my presentation. Here we go. And let's do it. All right, hopefully that's now coming through loud and clear for you. You can see that presentation. Yep, looks like it's coming through. So what we're going to be looking at tonight is a framework that will help you out with, I guess, doing the whole social media thing. It's overwhelming. It's something which is not easy for everyone to do, to just come up with new stuff all the time. So what we're doing is coming up with a way that you don't really have to come up with that new stuff all the time, yet it's still going to be having some kind of authenticity to it. It's not something that you're going to be looking, saying, oh, this just feels so fake. Now, what I've been able to do by doing this particular method is I've been able to take my connections back from January 1, 2022, when I first started doing this kind of take LinkedIn and social media seriously, from 725 connections to 5,196 of followers, from 1129 to 9,136. Those weekly impressions, and this is where really the average I've averaged out over the last couple of years has been from 36 weekly impressions of my content on LinkedIn, particularly per week, up to 327,000. That was a very round number. So it was actually 327,722. So I just rounded that down. The average post per week went from 1.25 on one profile to 42 per week across 4 profiles and pages, and an average monthly revenue attributable to social, which started off as 0, is now up to nearly $8,000 a month. So how did this all happen? Because obviously it takes a lot of effort to do this sort of thing. And a lot of people really struggle with this because, well, let's face it, social media is that thing we don't really all want to do. We just get stuck with it. So what we're trying to do is get to a point where we can make it simple and systematic. So first, what we're going to do is choose 2 to 3 main topics. I'm going to actually make it 2 tonight because I think that selecting the right topics is very important, and it helps you to focus not just on what you're doing, but what resonates most with the audience you're trying to reach. So we're going to look at 2 to 3 main areas to concentrate that content. We're just going to do 2 tonight. I think that's probably a bit easier for us. Why we're only choosing 2 topics is because it's hard to tell what you do and explain what you do to people if you talk about everything. So if you're talking about your breakfast one day, an event you went to the next day, Valentine's Day, and why love is important the next, and then you go in to talk about something professional to do with what you're working the next, it's really hard to figure out what it is you do. And if you're not focused, you're not clear. If you're not clear, that's very confusing for people to understand what your point of view is. And if you don't have a point of view, there's not really much reason to listen to you. You could be the smartest person in the world and an expert in your place, but if you're not in a position where people can understand you and know what it is you're talking about, then it's really, really hard for them to find a reason to even bother with you. So that's what we want to do, is get focused and get clear. Now, if you choose a broad topic, you still have lots of room to move. And that's the thing that a lot of people just go, oh, I don't know if I really, really want to get that niche, because then people will think that I'm not good at anything else. And that's not what we're trying to create. We're trying to create topics that are broad enough that you can go into lots of subtopics in there. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. So what we want to really do is, I guess, make it so it's possible for people to be able to understand us, know what we do, and be very clear on that, so we can be selected for what our services and products are. Now, you choose your topics based upon the expertise you have. Do you actually have something to say that's worth hearing because you're an expert? Is it helpful? Does what you know help others to move the dial in their area, whether that's in their career, in their business, in their skills? Third, can you keep doing this? Is it sustainable, really? Is it something you can talk about again and again and again and keep talking about? And then there's the credibility side of it. Is this something which is going to be credible? Are you actually a person who, I suppose, is, oh no, right? Maybe, oops. Are you a person who is can be trusted in this? Are you a person who has some kind of track record in this? And that's what we really want, is somebody who we can trust, who has a track record, and it's the kind of person we would ask for help in this anyway. So that's what we're trying to aim for. Now, my topics are around entrepreneurship and marketing because they're kind of entwined with each other. And that aligns with two of my lines of business through my coaching business, DanteStJames.com, and my training business, coaching training, bit different, clickstarter.com.au. Then the other side is all about building confidence in public speaking, which is done through my public speaking training business and my public speaking competition that I run a couple of times a year. So they are very, very specific areas that are very related to what I do. Now, I could mush those together and just call it entrepreneurship and confidence, but the reality is they are a little bit different with slightly different audiences that I need to get out to. Now, the disadvantage there, I guess, is that I'm also playing, I guess, with things that may seem unrelated. So marketing, public speaking, not quite the same. Building confidence and entrepreneurship, maybe a little bit more, but building confidence and marketing, well, I suppose it can be a little bit related as well. That's just it makes it a little bit hard to match the two of them together because I do things that are quite different, and you may have that problem as well. But what you want to do is ensure that you're not in a situation where things are so vastly different that they don't have any kind of relationship at all, that they're really, really hard for you to try and put together. Now, you can solve that by simply having different profiles or separating it out. So you might do one particular thing, say e-commerce over on Instagram, and then you may do your services, your consulting over on LinkedIn. You'd separate them out that way because e-commerce doesn't really have a massive place when it comes to LinkedIn unless you're training other people to use e-commerce or to use e-commerce tools. So let's continue. These topics are mine will expand. And this is how I want you to think when you choose that topic, right? Entrepreneurship and marketing can be split down into marketing, digital marketing, social media, starting, running, growing business, seeking capital, taking investment, business systems, digital tools, AI, and business automation as well. And while the building confidence side, yes, it's about speaking in public, but it could also be about speaking up in meetings, about having confidence to meet people, having opinions, doing some personal and professional development, or building your career or building your business, all kind of fits in there. And there's a bit of a Venn diagram that would sort of take those in. But the point here is take your two big topics and break them down and think, okay, well, what are all the things I could talk about in there? What are all the subtopics I could speak about in my big topics there? Once we've got those topics sorted, then we move on to defining your voice and your tone. And this is where we have to identify your core values, because they're not just your brand's voice, they are your personal voice. And this is where, particularly for a solopreneur or a small business owner, that we want to bring forth that voice, those opinions, that authenticity of who you are. And authenticity is such an overused word, I know. But let's think about it as you are what you say what you are, and you are what you mean, and you mean what you are. Like it's all matches. There is an integrity there, more so than just authenticity. You are who you say you are. You're not going to meet somebody in the workplace and they're going to be a certain way, and then you'll see them in the aisle at Woolies after work and they're a completely different person. So these values are going to be things that match you. So here's a list of values you might pull out. There's many more. I know Brene Brown's got a great list of about 50 of them. If you just search Brene Brown values on Google, you'll see them come up. They're a great list. But you could be accountable. Motivation could be something. Gregariousness, empathy, constructive, cooperative, coordinated, inspiring, flexible, focused, friendly, thorough, tenacious, sympathetic. Any of these could be some major core values for you. And now when I say core values, these are the things that are non-negotiables in your life. It doesn't matter where you turn up, what mood you're in, or what situation you're in, you're always that person. That's hard because so many of us think that we are very many different people when we're in very many different places. So I want you to try and think in terms of, okay, what can I actually live up to? Right? Am I an original person, or the reality is I drink Great Northern beer, which is not very original at all. So I'm not really living up to that in every area of my life. I could be very coordinated, but the reality is that when it comes to my family, it's a hot mess and nothing's organized at all. Or I could be someone who's very trustworthy, but my ex would probably say that I was less than trustworthy. So there got to be things you can live up to. These are not your dreams. These are not your aspirations. They're not what you're aspiring to be. They are what you are now. That's why they're called values and not aspirations. They're not what you want to be. They are what you are and what you can continually, at least 90% of the time, live up to. So that's why we choose them as values. Now, I know about honesty, effectiveness, and approachability. So the honesty is really important. That brings out a level of vulnerability in me as well. And I'll explain more about that in a second. For you, it could be effectiveness. So you want to be effective at what you do. So I'll explain a bit more about that as well. And approachability is another one as well. So how would I live these out? You know, in honesty, that means telling stories not just of success, but failure as well. In honesty, it can mean that times when I didn't deliver, when I failed a client. I've told quite a few stories of where I failed before. I could be very honest about the things that I use that help me to do it, the systems, when I use AI, when I don't use AI, when it's my idea, when it's an idea I've got from someone else, crediting other people, for example. And this, by and large, this whole process is a mishmash of lots of different amazing creators and writers that I found online. I've taken a little bit from this one and this one and this one and this one and mushed it together to form my way of doing it. So that's a form of honesty. I could say, hey, I got this idea from Justin Welsh and this idea from Brene Brown, and I got this idea from Alex Hormozy, and I got this idea from Gary Vaynerchuk, and this idea from Oprah Winfrey, and I could mush it all together and it becomes Dante's way of doing things, right? I can talk about honestly what helps me do it, the people who inspire me, my story, my dreams, my hopes. For the effectiveness, I'm delivering tips, tricks, how to, my experiences, the things I've tried before you buy advice, or do this instead of this, or beware of this lie or this scam, where I'm being very effective for people, giving them very actionable stuff that they can actually get by in life with. The approachability side of it can be expressed with photos with others where possible, free workshops, webinars, events, always inviting and including people in, mentioning people who I've met in my social media, mentoring, supporting people, comments and shout outs. I think that's the way you sort of express those. But whatever your particular values are, just have a think about how you can express those, how you can play those out in life and online. If you're struggling to come up with how I play those out in real life, they're probably not your values, they're probably aspirations. Aspirations are great. You can always push forward and they may become your values later, but unless you're living them now, they're just dreams. They're not really your values right now. Once we have those values, so we've got 2 topics, 3 values. Now we're moving on to 5 questions. And why I've got 2, 3, and 5 is going to make a lot of sense very shortly. These 5 questions give you the spread of different ways of approaching a topic with your values. So let's say, what can I teach? What have I noticed? How do I think differently about this? How can I explain this using a list? And what happened and how did it happen? This is straight ripped from a guy called Justin Welsh, who has got a very he doesn't really use this that much anymore, but I found there was a really effective way for me to think through how to approach different topics. Now, break them down a bit. What can I teach is all about, lessons. What can I teach about what I've done? How can I show you how to do something? Have I got a playbook for how to achieve something? Have I got tips and tricks and hacks that I can offer you that will make life easier? Now, the what can I teach comes under this webinar. This webinar is literally a what can I teach post in the form of a long format video that's going to be available on LinkedIn and YouTube after it's finished. So you can share it with friends and all that. It becomes a post that keeps on giving. Let me just quickly mute out my microphone. Excuse me. Now, the next one is, what have I noticed? This is where you're literally recalling something you read, something you saw, something you did, something you liked, something you didn't like. It's something that got your attention. And I've got some places where we can sort of find these. Like some of this inspiration could come from your calendar. So I often at the beginning of the week when I'm writing some content, go back through last week's calendar and go, who did I meet with last week that I had a great conversation with? So I go through my calendar and go, yes, when I caught up with her, she was amazing and she had this amazing thing to say. And so I'll tell that story and I can talk about how I noticed it. When I met up with this person at this event, I noticed that she was very nervous at meeting me. And I asked her if that was the case. And she told me this. That becomes a post. So this is what have I noticed? I probably do more of these than the other posts because I really enjoy the format. But perhaps the one that works the best for me and gets the most engagement is this next one, which is how do I think differently about this? And this is where there's the contrarian point of view. You know, they think that, I think this, the unpopular opinions or a different spin on a common topic. You know, all these coaches saying, do this, do this, do this. That's rubbish. You should do this. This opinionated point of view is very cool and it's very, very highly engaging. And it certainly gets people noticing, but it has one small catch. It has to be true. You can't just have a contrarian point of view that isn't the truth or that isn't able to be backed up. So as long as you can back it up and you've got proof and you can sort of lay it out in really solid points that make sense and are easily understood by others, then it's not really a different point of view. It's just you being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. So just have a think about that. If you do have something that really sort of grinds your gears on a social media network and you want to talk about it, don't just come in with a problem, come in with solutions as well. All right. So the next one after this is how do I think differently about this? Sorry, it's just not moving on. Come on, we can do it. Next one is what can I deliver as a list? So this is in the format, but we used to call it clickbait. So it's because it's being misused, I guess, as clickbait, which is here's the top 10 reasons why you should visit Alice Springs. You'll never believe what number 3 is. You know, it's just that format is kind of dead. What we're trying to do now is think more in terms of, okay, we're thinking in terms of helpful lists that help people understand sometimes complex topics that you might want to talk about. So it could be the top 10 things that something. Here's 3 ways to do this thing. 4 things that this and another 4 that. Or 1 big lie and 3 big alternatives. Sometimes it's just 2 things. Here's 2 reasons why. What it does, it helps people to understand that this is a very simple list that's easy to consume. And you can't do this every post because it gets very tiring and it gets very boring and very repetitive. And then people tend to not trust you if you do too many of them because it feels clickbaitish, right? We remember BuzzFeed and all those terrible Facebook posts that we got tricked into only to find it was some kind of scam or fake news of some sort. Then we move on to probably my favorite one not because I do a lot of it, because it's actually the hardest one to write. This is what happened and how did it happen? This is a story. It's a story about this thing that happened and here's how it happened, or this positive outcome happened and here's how we did it, or this negative outcome happened and here's what we did wrong, or I never expected this to happen, but it did and here's what it was. You're telling a bit more of an extended story. It's saying, it's kind of like you're starting with the end. You're starting with here's what happened, literally, and this is what it led to, or this is what happened because of it, or this is how we got to that point. So this particular kind is very much what you probably see a lot of people doing as storytelling. Now, this is all great. How are we going to use all this? What we're going to do is have a process. First, we're going to build a spreadsheet. We're going to make a bit of a matrix using topics, values, and questions and spread it over 13 weeks. I've got a pre-prepared one here that I can probably share with you on this post. I'll send some links to it because it's just a Google sheet that you can download and steal for yourself. And we want to generate ideas and write. We're going to find ideas in calendars. Like I said before, we could pick out an interaction we had with someone, social media posts that you're seeing out there from influencers and creators who you think might be great to expand on a topic with, or you can just brainstorm with AI. And quite often I'll do that. And I'll show you exactly how I do this just in a second. And then you schedule and repeat. You schedule your posts and even repeat them if you want to. Now, what our spreadsheet's going to do is give you 13 weeks. That's basically 3 months or a quarter of a year. In the case of some of my business pages, where they're very low, they're more there just to show that I've got material there and we're alive and kicking, and they're not really made for a lot of interaction or for engagement. They're just there to show that I'm open and here's my services and what I do and a little bit of credibility. I just repeat them, and there's one lot that's been repeating for 2 years now. The same posts 3 times a week over 13 weeks, and then they repeat again for another 13. They repeat again for another 13. So it's 39 posts all up that repeat every 3 months. That's really easy to do. And if they're really well written, they kind of never age. And that's the key. You don't do things. Well, this is avoiding us having to do Taco Tuesday, Valentine's Day, Merry Christmas, Happy St. Patrick's Day, Happy Awareness Pin Awareness Day. We don't want to be doing that stuff because it says nothing about you apart from that you're virtue signaling your support for something that you probably don't even support anyway. So let's go into, now hopefully this is going to show up on here. Yeah, looks like it will. So I got my template here. You're probably going to struggle to read this, particularly on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in a bit closer to this so you can read it a bit more clearly. So what we've got here, I've got these 13 weeks, week 1 right down through to week 13. I've started it on the 24th of February because that is a Monday, and I'm taking that out to the 25th of May, 2025. Now, what you'll see is I've spread out my posts on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So this is a Monday here, Wednesday, Friday. And then I give a spread of my topics, my values, and my questions. Now, this is why I've got 2 topics, 3 values, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. Because what happens is on Monday, topic 1, value 1, and what can I teach? Monday the following week is topic 2, value 1, and what can I deliver as a list? So I'm getting a different mix of topics, values, and questions as well. That could be even made better if I took these guys here and put them into Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday instead. So I could spread it out so I don't even get the same value on the same days. I'm just getting topic 2, value 1, and then let's spread these in the right spot. There we go. And I could do that so that in 1 week, I've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then the next week, I've got Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, there's a reason why I'm only doing 3 posts a week, apart from the fact that you don't want to overwhelm yourself, is that things are going to come up in your business that you want to post about. I've allowed myself here 1, 2, 3, 4 days a week that I can do all that. If I want to have a rant, if I want to post something I've shared, if I want to share an event that I went to, or a selfie, a no context selfie of me at the beach relaxing, I can do that. I've got room for it. I've got 4 days a week to do that without it absolutely ruining my pattern of posts that are going to go through explaining who I am, what I do, what I can teach, what I've noticed, how I think differently about this, what I deliver as a list, and what happened and how. So you can see that uneven matching of 2 topics, 3 values, 5 questions is there for a very, very solid reason, because I don't want to have the same things coming up every week, week after week in the same pattern. I want to create a little bit of randomness in there. So now I've got all this, how do I write the content? And this is the magic stuff where I usually go to ChatGPT or a similar thing like Perplexity. Sometimes I use Google Gemini, but I've got a GPT in here that I use basically. And I've got the Pro ChatGPT, the very expensive one, because I use it so heavily to do a lot of brainstorming and writing. So what I'm going to do here is pull out my writing GPT. And what I'll do is I'll copy some details about how I wrote this into the LinkedIn event. So you can follow that. So please, if you're on YouTube or watching this on Zoom, please get onto me on LinkedIn, because on the LinkedIn event for this particular webinar, I'll have a lot of this information. What I use in here is, I call it the right hook perspective and emulation. It's just because in my head, it made sense at the time. I've written this set of tasks to say, okay, I'm going to bring this up really big so you can really see how it writes. I'm going to start. And the first thing it's going to do is ask me, what do I want to create? Social media post, article, short format video script, or a long form video script. I'm going to write a social media post. So, number one, so, oh, great, you want to create a social media post. What is the main question you want to answer through this post? See, it's going straight to my questions. I've already trained this GPT in my values. So, I don't need to tell it what the values are or select a value because it's already randomly throwing my values in there in a mixed way. So I've gone a little bit beyond just the matrix to have a bit more. So what I want to do is something I can teach. Okay, let's see. I want to teach A. So it's now going to check with me. You've chosen to create a social media post that answers the question, what can I teach? Now, what is it you want to teach? What specific topic do you want to teach about? I want to show people how to reduce the time, their time consuming social media by creating summaries of transcripts from YouTube videos. So you might think, oh, what's that got to do with anything? Well, it's teaching someone how to use something in social media, which I do. Now I've got an extra step in here, which is talking about the perspective I want to write from. Do I want to, give an idea of what the benefit is? Do I want to show a big idea, a concept, an example, a goal? Frame it as a goal that people should achieve. Want to stay informed, but cut your social media time in half. This is how good this little GPT is. And I'm pretty sure I can share it to free users as well. So I'll give that a try. Hopefully it'll work for you when I share it. And then the problem, emphasize the struggle that people face before finding this solution or a process, a step-by-step guide on how exactly to do it. I like the idea of a step-by-step process. I'm going to go 7. And it's going to now say, okay, you want a social media post from the process perspective, providing a step-by-step guide on how to summarize YouTube videos. Before we move forward, do you have a transcript from elsewhere, a script or some sort of example text you'd like to reference from? I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to go, no, I'm going to just create it from scratch. I don't want to necessarily get something else. This is helping me to then go, have I written about this before in a blog post that I can then bring forward and say, base it on the info in my blog post? Because I've got hundreds of them, right? So it's going to say, do I want to write this in the style of a specific person, or do I want to default to my own style of writing? So I just want to go, yeah, write it like me, because that's for me. I don't want to write like someone else. But if I liked someone else's style, I could choose that. So it's now confirming with me, do I want to write the social media post with a process perspective, teaching how to summarize YouTube videos to reduce social media time in my writing style? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. It gives me a chance to actually put in any other information. So it's going to write me a hook based on 3 things that I've taught it to do. Spending hours watching YouTube is struggling to retain key insight. Here's the secret. You don't need to watch full videos to get the value. Instead, you can summarize transcripts in minutes, saving time while staying informed. Then it goes into the body of the post. How to, step 1, step 2, step 3. By following this system, you'll stop wasting hours on fluff and only focus on high value insights. That's easy. Now, I don't just take this, copy it, put it into LinkedIn and say paste. What I want to do is, and this is a paid thing you can do on ChatGPT, I use their Canvas. So I go /Canvas, and I can now edit this and write it in here, edit it the way I want it to say it. So it's saying how to summarize the YouTube videos in an editable window. So I go, I'm just going to go summarize YouTube videos. Come on, let's do it. YouTube videos and cut your social media time in half. Okay, we all want to learn from great time. Let's be real. Watching endless YouTube videos is a massive time drain. I'm going to say huge time drains. That's a bit more me. Instead of passively consuming, here's how you can extract key insights. I'd never say key insights. The most important stuff. I reckon you can almost always tell that AI has written something on LinkedIn if it says key, the word key. You can extract the most important stuff in minutes and free up hours each week. Number 1, get the transcript. Click the 3 dots below the video, select show transcript. Step 2, paste it into a summarizer like these. So it's given me those ideas. Now, I may want to edit that even more. I might want to then do a video that goes with it, but I've essentially got that information based upon that stuff. So I cut down my time to get those ideas because I'll just pick up ideas and I'll go into ChatGPT and use this particular structure that I've created in this GPT. Now, there's lots of or other ones. I've got other, how to create a hook, how to get the perspective, but I've kind of used this great big huge one to create the whole thing. Now, I'm afraid you probably will not be able to use this full thing in the free version because it's got so many steps to it and it uses a higher level of ChatGPT. But I'm more than happy to show you what the nuts and bolts inside there are. So if I go and edit and say, this is the set of instructions, and you'll see there's quite a lot of instructions. So I'll send you a link to where you can get those instructions. You can edit it to maybe look at your style of writing because at the moment it's writing like me. I've trained it on about 200 different documents that write like me. So in the stylist Dante St. James, you can change that to the style of whoever you like, whether it's you, if you've got enough stuff that you can train it on for yourself, or you've got enough material online that it knows how you write and how you communicate. But it all comes down to this plan, right? Our topics, our values, our question, and then we can go onto those tools and write them. Now, you might be a purist, you don't like AI. Well, then write your hook in here, write your body in here, and then you've got a nice little way of putting all that together. So that's essentially how we do it. There's not really a lot more to it apart from that. What it's all really about is understanding that we are working with, I guess, a lot of different tools, a lot of different approaches, and those approaches could be just 1 second. It's got to turn off stop the screen sharing. There we go. We're back again. What we're doing is trying to get around the fact that we just can't seem to always do this writing consistently and in a way that's going to be time efficient for you. And it's not going to do your head in every time you need to do your social media. 2 topics, 3 values, 5 questions, and that's all you need to be able to help do that. I'll share those links down below in the LinkedIn posts. If you're listening on Zoom, if you're coming in Zoom, please go to my LinkedIn profile, look for the most current video that's showing on that profile, which will be this one that we're watching right now. And that will give you the idea of how you're going to be able to do that. I'll have links in there for the GPT. I'll have a link in there for the Matrix, and you'll be able to get those for free. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm glad you were able to get something out of this. In the meantime, please do, send me a message on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. If you've got any feedback, please let me know. In the meantime, have a great night, and I'll see you on the other side.